All right, so let's start. Let me get the meeting the recording on. So I'm ready. Rick, are you ready? Rick, are you ready with the video? TV 34? Oh, he says everything is live. Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay. Janice, you want to do the open public meeting?
Sorry. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Montclair Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. Notice of this meeting has been published in the paper, posted on our bulletin board, and posted on our website in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. And I'll start with the roll call. Chair Harrison?
Present.
Vice Chair Fleischer?
Present.
Mr. Moore?
Present.
Mr. Simon?
Present.
Mr. Church? Mr. McCullough, were you able to get on? I think I see you there.
I'm
Yep.
present.
Okay. Mr. Allen? Ms. Harris?
Present.
Good. Mr. Caulfield? I think Mr. Caulfield's still trying to connect.
I thought he was on. I saw him before he was on.
Yeah, I see you. All right. And Ms. Gilmer?
Present.
Okay.
Okay, we have the minutes of the September 16th meeting. I don't have any changes. Does anyone else have any changes?
No.
Someone want to move the minute?
Move approval of the minutes as submitted.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
All right, who abstained? Was that,
Angela Harris.
and Mr. Caulfield?
Yes, sir.
Right? Okay.
Okay, we have the resolutions for the Williams property on Orange Road. I have two changes. In number one, in the whereases, after it says subject property, put in the word is.
Yep, got it.
And number 7, where it says existing front yard setback, in the second line of that, put in existing Hollywood Avenue front yard setback. So it's clear which street we're giving the variance to. Anyone else have any other changes to that resolution?
Move approval of the resolution as corrected.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Got it.
And then we have the resolution for the Kelly property on Clairidge Road. I don't have any changes to that resolution. Does anyone else have any changes?
Move approval of the resolution as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay.
And then we have the request for an extension for the property at 451 Orange Road. This is for the addition to the billboard manufacturing business. He was delayed due to COVID-19. I think there was a letter, an email from him in your packets. Does anyone have anything they want to say about it or any concerns about granting the requested one-year extension?
I think given the circumstances, we should do that for the applicant.
Any other discussion? Someone want to make a motion to approve?
If you could say your names, it would help me when you make a motion.
Joe Fleischer.
Okay.
Move to provide an extension for the applicant for 1 year as requested.
Second, John Caulfield.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Hold on one second. Mr. Caulfield, I don't think you're eligible to make that, to second that.
Why? I was there at that meeting. I was there.
Yeah, but we have, if my sheet is accurate, you're a second alternate, is that
Oh, I'm
correct?
sorry. Yep, you're right. Sorry then, Michael.
So we just need someone else to second that.
All right, this is John McCullough. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Okay, anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, the first application is that of Matthew Nowak for property at 44 Godfrey Road. This is an application for a variance to construct in addition to an existing detached garage. The property is in the R11 family zone. The property is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 2 in Block 1706. The variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-46A2A to permit a side yard setback for accessory structures on interior and a corner lot of less than the required 6 feet. Variance is also requested from Montclair Code Section 347-46A3 to permit rear yard setback for accessory structures less than the required 6 feet. Are taxes paid and is the notice in order?
Yes, it is.
And is the applicant present?
Yes, he is. Mr. Nowak, I just
Yep.
made you a panelist.
Thank you. Yep, we're here.
Okay, Mr. Nowak, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Matthew Nowak, 44 Godfrey Road, Montclair.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nowak, you want to explain what you're proposing to do to the garage?
Yes, sir. So the house is built in 1918, and the garage must have been an update at a later date than that. It has sort of a concrete and rebar roof. And I think over the years, there's been some moisture that's gotten in, and basically it becomes a box that mildews whenever it's hot and cold and water gets in, and there's just basically water damage that we need to fix. And so our proposal is to demolish the roof and raise the garage to the just under the max height, which I believe is 15 feet, and make it a wood roof instead of concrete and rebar, and gain a little bit of storage space, but otherwise keep the structure as it is, not tearing down any of the other walls.
I muted everybody because of the background noise, so.
There is an actual drawing of the proposed structure in the package, not this sketch.
Is,
Yes, sorry,
let's see,
this-
there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, Matt, if you let me know which page you want to refer to in your testimony, anybody, I'll pull it up on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is the proposed plans. As you can see, we're raising the height of the roof, putting on an A-frame roof with normal asphalt shingles. And other than that, the 3 walls remain the same. We'll probably replace the door, but we're not going to change the size of the opening. We'll put a window in the back and a ridge vent along the roof line to aid in ventilation. But other than that, it's pretty simple changes. We're also going to replace the siding on the outside with clapboard to match the house and paint it the same color as the house. And gain a bit of storage space above, but I don't think there's even room to stand up there. It should just be to be able to store a few boxes. And I believe those are the details that are worth mentioning.
Bill,
Yes. Mr.
Sorry.
Fleishman, do you have any questions?
I have one question. How are you going to deal with, the original roof was a flat roof. Now we have a pitched roof, and I think we have to deal with the runoff. And I want to make sure any runoff off this roof is directed onto your property, not onto the adjacent property.
Yes, so we are planning on putting gutters on the roof, and we're also, as soon as the renovation is done to the garage itself, we'll be redoing the drainage in the area and also redoing the driveway. So the plan is to tie the gutters into the drainage such that it doesn't run into our next door neighbor's property.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Mr. Simon, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just in terms of the diagram, I'm looking at the survey. So it says the setback is 3.3 from the southern property line, but on this it says 2.5. If I'm reading this correctly, it's saying 1.65 at its closest point. Am I reading this correctly on the survey?
Let me bring it up. Sorry, one moment.
This is page 2, Jan. Oh, okay, you got it. Yeah. So if I'm looking at this correctly.
I mean, from what I can tell, you were reading it correctly, yes.
So maybe just a description in the packet was incorrect, Janice? Is that possible? Because it's 3.3 feet.
It could be possible because clearly it's 1.65.
Okay. All right. So, but as far as you're concerned, you're not changing any of the existing footprint. You're just changing, the walls are staying the same. They're just basically going up.
That's correct. Yeah, the walls are actually concrete block, and there are some cracks in them. We'll be repairing those cracks, but we're leaving the walls intact.
Okay. No other questions?
Okay. Mr. McCulloch, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Caulfield, do you have any questions?
No.
And Ms. Gilmore, do you have any questions?
Yes, I noticed that on the back of the new proposed structure, there is a window. And then I can't really tell in the distance from the picture how close that will be from your neighbor's structure. Is that their home or another garage?
That window will open onto the back end of their driveway, which is right in front of their garage. Probably 150 feet from their house.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. That was all.
Mr. Nowak,
Yes, sir.
did you have a chance to review the recommendations of the Historic Preservation Commission?
Yes. I mean, we spoke about it at that hearing, and we've been implementing the changes that they recommended.
Okay, so you have no problem if we impose those as a condition on the approval?
No, I don't have any problem.
If you do say something, because they're purely making a recommendation to us, so if I'm not saying we'll agree with you or them, but if, now's your chance to, if you have an issue with any of them, now's your chance to say something.
Okay, yeah, the only questions I guess that I had is there was one recommendation that we only stick to 2 lights on the front of the garage, which is our intention. My only question for the future is just about a security light at that point, because there currently is one on the garage. And I wasn't sure whether or not we were going to leave that intact or not when we do the update. But other than that, as far as the size of the siding panels, as far as the tie-ins with drainage and the gutters, everything else we discussed is our plan to implement.
Okay, I think my suggestion in terms of I think their concern with the light fixtures was a symmetry one. Is the security light centered on the garage?
No, the current one is off to the left top corner. And to be honest, we'll probably remove it and keep to the symmetry of the two lights on the front.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Okay, Janice, I don't know what public we have, but
I will.
are there any members of the public who have any either questions, testimony, anything whatsoever you want to say about the application? Now is your one and only chance to say whatever.
Madeline Laparina, are you here for this application or are you here for another application?
I'm here for another application.
Okay. Okay, then we don't have, I think everybody who's an attendee is here for the other application.
Okay. But I'll give everyone one last chance. If there's anyone with any comments or questions or testimony about this application, say something. Okay. Mr. Nowak, do you have anything further you want to say before we discuss and vote on the application?
No, other than I've spoken about this project with all of my immediate neighbors, and everybody's aware and happy with the plan.
Okay, we'll start discussion with Mr. Moore.
I am in favor of this application. I do not see it as a hardship to the neighbors, detriment. I think the only hardship may be that the property owner is incurring some water issues with the property. So I think that it will certainly add value to your home. And I think it's a great idea. My restrictions that they fall in line with the recommendations from the Historic Preservation Commission. You raise a good point in regards to the security light. And I think as long as it's a light that possibly only turns on when there's motion, that's fine. For the most part, I am in favor of the application.
Okay, Mr. Simon?
I'm in favor. He's maintaining an existing condition, so I'm in favor.
Mr. McCulloch?
I'm also in favor of what's being proposed and appreciate that the intent is to bring it architecturally into consistency with the main residence on the property.
Ms. Harris?
I'm in favor of this application.
Okay. Mr. Caulfield?
I'm in favor of this application.
Ms. Gilmer?
I'm in favor of the application as well.
Mr. Fleischer?
I'm also in favor of the application, but with regard to the lighting, it seems to me that we should follow the suggestion of the historic preservation people and keep it to the two lights, which I'm sure can be integrated with a motion detector in the light. So there's probably a way to handle that within the two lights, and it should be done that way to maintain, because this is a changed look, and I think we should try to follow the recommendation in this case.
Okay. I'm also in favor of the application. I think this is going to be a upgrade to the way the garage currently looks. I don't think it'll result in a substantial detriment to the public good or a substantial impairment to the zone plan, since he's keeping the existing footprint of the garage I think we should condition it on the conditions of the Historic Preservation Commission and that the stormwater runoff from the garage be maintained on the subject property. Any further discussion, or does someone want to make a motion?
Move approval of the application with conditions as stated by the chair.
I second.
Who seconded it?
Jonathan Moore.
Okay, John, thank you.
And Janice, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Simon,
Yes.
Mr. McCullough,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Caulfield,
Yes.
Ms. Gilmer,
Yes.
Mr. Fleischer,
Yes,
and Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Did I add one extra name to that? I think I did.
You had too many, but we'll,
Yeah, I think Ms. Gilmer was, as the third alternate, did not count, so. Okay.
he always counts, just not in the vote.
Absolutely. Okay.
okay. The next application is Mr. and Ms. Barkley for property at 137 Walnut Street. It is an application for site plan approval to construct a new building containing 5 residential dwelling units on the property and maintaining the existing 2-family dwelling. Variance is requested from Montclair Code sections 347-51 and 347-45-2. I guess, no, I'll read all the variances, some of which we already approved, but just because this is a bifurcated hearing, I guess they're subject to the hearing. Variances requested from Montclair Code section 347-51, 347-45A to permit the proposed multifamily dwelling to be 6 stories in height, whereas the ordinance permits a maximum of 2.5 stories. A variance from Montclair Code sections 347-51 and 347-43 to permit the multifamily dwelling to set back 15.3 feet from the rear property line, whereas the ordinance requires a minimum rear yard setback of 64.5 feet. A variance from Montclair Code section 347-52 and 347-46A2 and 3 to permit the detached garage to be set back 2.5 feet side property line and 0 feet from the rear property line, whereas the ordinance requires it be set back a minimum of 6 feet. Variance from Montclair Code section 347-27 make a fence site 6 feet along the sides of the existing residential dwelling, whereas the ordinance provides a maximum permitted fence height of 4.5 feet in front of the extreme rear corners of the principal building on the site. As I indicated, they're also requesting preliminary and final site plan approval and any other relief that is necessary. Are taxes paid and is the notice in order?
Yes, the taxes are paid and we received the notice.
Okay, Mr. Trembulac, do you want to give your appearance and proceed?
Alan, let me unmute you.
I thought I did
Okay.
that already. Okay. All right, we'll try that again. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Alan Trembulac appearing on behalf of the applicants, Victor Barkley and Khadija Barkley. As the notice indicates, this is the second phase of a bifurcated application involving property located at 137 Walnut Street, which is in the R2 zoning district. In June of last year, this board granted an application for a use variance to permit my clients to construct a new multi-family residential building in the rear of the property, which would contain 5 new dwelling units. In addition, the proposal, which the board approved, was also to retain the existing 2-family building located in the front of the property near Walnut Street, with the condition that the 3rd floor border use be eliminated, and I can represent to the board that that in fact has been eliminated. The board's approval in June of 2019 also required, as it had to, that the applicant apply and obtain site plan approval from this board, and that's why we're here this evening. We've submitted a detailed site plan, which is generally consistent with the conceptual plan, which the board reviewed a year ago. And we're seeking approval of that site plan. And in addition, we're seeking approval of 3 C variances. We did notice a variance for the fence height, but the plan has been revised and that so that the fence provided on the plan is compliant with the ordinance. So we do not need a variance for fence, but we do need the other 3 C variances. So I have 2 witnesses to present this evening: John Guadagnoli, the architect who testified at the prior hearing and who prepared the site plan that's before you, and also William Stimmel, who also testified in the prior application as professional planner, and he will provide testimony in support of the 3 C variances and other relief that we're seeking. So unless the board has any preliminary questions for me, I would proceed by calling John Guadagnoli as my first witness.
Mr. Guadagnoli, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
John Guadagnoli. My office address is 102 Walnut Street in Montclair.
Okay. Mr. Guadagnoli, you testified in the prior hearing on this property a year ago, is that right?
That's correct, right.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I assume the board will accept his qualifications as an architect?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, John, you prepared the site plan that's been submitted to this board in connection with this application, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and was that plan prepared, the plan that's been prepared, is that generally consistent with the conceptual plan which was presented to the board as part of the prior application?
Yes, yes it is.
Okay, all right. Before you discuss the site plan, I think it might be helpful if you just took a few minutes to discuss the existing conditions of this property and remind the board as to how the property is currently used and the structures that are currently located on this property.
Okay. Currently, there is a Victorian-style 2-family home right on Walnut Street, address 137. There is a driveway on the the west side of the property that leads to an open tarmac, if you will, a large central paved area. There is currently a red wooden commercial building that was used as an automobile, some sort of automobile thing. I don't know if they cleaned cars or fixed them, but it was a mechanic shop in a sense. And then there's also an existing 2-car garage there tucked in the westernmost corner of the property. There is directly behind the house parking and some grass, but or else it's just an open lot. It is surrounded by the backyards of all the adjacent structures around it. The backyards all abut to this. So this is essentially a kind of a central flag lot. What else? The property pitches slightly from the west to the east. And there is also on Walnut Street a second driveway, but it only doesn't go to the back. It stops even with the front of the house. Currently, the house has 2 sets of wooden stairs, one on either side, like ears to a head, if you will, which will be taken away in order to provide driveway access, both entering and exiting. The new plan calls for the existing house to lose the stairs on either side, for a 3-story, 5-unit multifamily dwelling directly behind the house. That dwelling is adjacent to a large landscaped garden space. The most of the parking on the site, or at least half of it, will be internal. It'll be inside the ground floor of the new building. It'll be,
John?
yes.
Yeah, if you want to refer to a certain sheet, just let me know and I will pull up that sheet on your exhibits.
Sure. Sheet, for now, SP1, please.
Okay, that's fine. Just want.
Okay. If you look at SP1, you can see the new building, which is hatched. It is in the lower left corner of the property, or the southeast corner of the property. And you can see that just in front of it is like a landscaped area. And then between the new house and the new building and the existing house, there is a driveway and some parking that services mostly the existing house. You know, we've provided the things asked for, as far as I could tell. There's a covered garbage area next to the garage. There's a handicap spot. We have left the natural grade close to what it is. The new scheme has more pervious coverage than what exists. We've actually made it greener by a little bit. We were able to do that because there was so much paved parking space before, and that is a lot less. The building we're removing, by the way, is currently exists over the property line by a few feet in the back corner. So with the removal of that, we also remove that violation, that pre-existing violation. As I said, the property pitches, we left pretty much the same natural pitch of the property toward the southwest. The connection of the street to the dwelling units is serviced by one driveway on the southern side, on the eastern side of the property. And I think that's about it. We're refurbishing the existing garage because right now it looks like kind of an industrial thing. And so we're giving it a peaked roof to make it more compatible with a residential use. The whole property will be curbed and paved and landscaped. That's about it. With the 5 units, plus the 2 that are there, will equal a total of 7 units, which is well below the density limitation for a property this size.
All right, John, let me ask you some follow-up questions for some more specifics. Can you just talk about ingress and egress and how cars would circulate throughout the site?
Yes. If you look at SP1, I have something labeled entry driveway. Obviously, that's where you come in. There's a little arrow there. It shows it. By the way, there is a driveway there now. We're just using the driveway. We're providing a 4-foot buffer as required. Right now, it doesn't have it. So it's a 4-foot planting buffer plus a driveway that takes you past the existing house into a small parking area. That parking area services, what is it, 5, 6, 9, 16 parking spots. 8 of them are indoors. 8 of them are encased within the new building. Once you park, when you want to leave, you drive around the building and you exit on the essentially on the east side of the building. So you enter on the west, you exit on the east. The 2 curb cuts that we'll be using are existing. There are already curb cuts there, so we don't have to, make any more. We don't have to lose any more parking on the street or anything because the curb cuts are already there. Again, there's a 4-foot buffer on the other side as well, on the egress side. So it basically is a loop. You go in, you park, you go out the other way. If there's no 2-way traffic, it's all 1 way in, 1 way out.
Okay. You mentioned the parking. What's the total number of parking spaces provided on the site plan?
Let me see. 9 plus 8. Oh, sorry. 17, not 16. 17.
Right. And then just so it's clear, I think you said 8 of those will be in the new building?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And the other spaces there are several spaces behind the existing two-family, correct?
Yes, we provided 5 spots behind the two-family, and then there's an additional 4, over by the garage area on the west side.
Okay, and where's the handicap space located on the plan?
It's on the 4 I just mentioned on the west side, just in front of the trash enclosure.
Okay, all right. Will there be any other revisions to the existing building, external revisions? Obviously, I assume I don't know whether the inside's going to be revised or not, but will there be any other changes to the exterior of the existing two-family?
Yes, upon removal of the stairs on either side, there are some roof extensions that were utilized to provide cover on the stairs. So when the stairs go, those roof extensions go. So the house will have will be back to its natural original roof geometry. It will not have these flared extensions and overhangs to cover the stair. It'll go back to what it was when built.
Okay. All right. Can you review the floor plans for the new 5-unit residential building?
Yeah, they'd be found on SP2. SP2. The elevations of the building are shown in color. And left and bottom, we have the new buildings on the left. You can see if you go to the extreme lower left of that drawing, it says ground level. Plan spaces are on the right. There's a single 2-bedroom dwelling unit of 1,210 square feet. It is on the ground level. It is handicapped accessible. There are no steps or anything. You could roll right in. And it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with its own laundry room and utility room and 2 means of egress. That's on the ground floor. On the second floor, which is just above it, there are 2 almost identical or similar 2-bedroom units. Again, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and the usual kitchen, living, dining space with a central hallway. And then on the top floor, the 3rd level, which is really encased within like an attic, are 2 1-bedroom units, which are smaller. One is 925 square feet. The other one's 1,007 square feet. Again, central stair. The objective here was to have a fragmented building. I did not want this big block like a brick in the middle of all those houses. So we did something that almost kind of appears to grow organically, where an addition was put on and then another thing was done. And we're trying to make it a little random rather than a formal building that is on a front street. We also added, since the last meeting, a basement because the requirement was that we had to have storage for the tenants. So half the building, half of the lowest floor will have a basement of about 1,500 square feet. And it will have, it will be divided up so as to provide private storage for each of the tenants. I also provided a roof plan, which you can see just above that on the same sheet, which was requested by, I think, the historic people. So I show the roof now. And finally, I just did an outline drawing of the existing 2-family, which you see on the lower right. Existing 1st floor plan, existing 2nd, and then the existing attic where the border apartment used to be. So you can see the layout of that. That's existing, and they were recently renovated by the owner. So those 2 units are in good shape.
And the 3rd floor border apartment use has been eliminated. Is that correct?
Yeah, nobody's living there at this time. Right.
Okay. And there's no intent for anybody to live there in the future.
That was what I understand and what was agreed to. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Now, you understand, I think, that the applicant is required to provide an affordable unit as part of this project, and I believe that affordable unit must be a 2-bedroom unit. Has the affordable unit been determined yet as of this time?
Not to my knowledge, that would be a question for the owner. However, the 3 two-bedroom units that are here are all approximately the same size. I mean, they're almost exactly the same, within a few square feet. So it really doesn't matter which one he deems appropriate to allocate that way.
Okay. I think you discussed the plans for the garage on the westerly side of the property. Is there anything more you wanted to say about that? Those plans are also shown on the site plan, is that right?
Yes, on SP1, yeah, there's two elevations of the garage and indicated on the plan. There was a concern that the overhang of the garage roof would cross over the property line. So I put a note in the drawing at the uppermost part of the drawing next to the garage on SP1, which states that cut back garage overhang flush with property line. So we want to make sure that we don't, overhang the property line. It's a pre-existing garage. It's already there. So we just don't want to, we don't want to go over the line.
Okay. And I think you touched on briefly the trash enclosure, which is located adjacent to the garage building. Is that correct? In front of it? That's, all right.
And it's covered. It was required that it be covered, and we did that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And the plans indicate that it will be covered and also fenced in. And is it your understanding that the plan as shown complies with the site plan requirements for a trash enclosure?
Yes, it's shown on SP3. There are 2 elevations of the garage enclosure, as well as a side view that shows the roof and a floor plan view. It's on SP3 on the right side of the drawing.
Okay.
Yeah.
The plans also indicate that there's a sign proposed in the front of the property. Can you discuss that?
Yes, the sign simply has the address, the name of the facility, which the owners had. They told me what they were gonna name the facility, and it was given to me after the drawings were submitted, so I didn't put it. But it was just have the name of the facility, whatever, and then just something that says entrance, because one could easily drive into the exit, or or just drive past it and not see it because the building is hidden behind the existing building. You could drive right past and not know it's there unless something told you it's there. So that's why the sign is kind of important.
Sign also includes the street number also.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Number 137, the name of the facility, and the word entrance. That's it.
And where is that sign to be located? Near the entrance driveway? Is that
correct? Yes, that's exactly right. Right, and we maintain the distances to the property line, and I think it's like supposed to be 6 feet off the property line, and that's what we did.
Okay. All right. Can you talk then, discuss the landscaping plan that I think was provided along with the other other plans?
That's SP5. That's right.
Can you review that with the board?
So as stated earlier, we are furnishing the site with a 4-foot planting buffer on each side, and that would be running up the driveways, and then next to the new building there'd be just a green space, and I have a planting list, a list of plant species that we're putting. I work with a landscape designer with this. They help me out with selections and appropriate selections. And so if you look at the plan, everything's noted. And then if you go to the legend, it tells you what it is. It's not overly dense, but there's a lot of varied. I mixed it up. I wanted something mixed up. So there are different trees, different bushes, different landscape experiences as you go through.
All right. And the site plan ordinance encourages the use of native species.
Yes.
Do those plantings include native species?
Some of them are, and those that are not are adapted. Like they work well in our climate zone. I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of 6, the grass, the planting beds, the deciduous trees, the holly, the rhododendron, those are all native. And then there are a number that are just simply, they work in this zone even though they're not from this area.
Okay.
It's noted on the legend, by the way, with asterisks, which ones are which. So.
Okay. All right. Next, can you discuss the new lighting that's proposed as part of the site plan?
Yeah, I work with a lighting specialist to lay out the lighting. The driveways are basically flanked by bollard lights. They are indicated as B4 and B5, and they run up and down they run up one side of each driveway and just provide enough ground lighting. They have fins on them so that the light shines down and not up or across. So the lighting is very controlled inside the driveways. In the back of the existing house where there's parking, and between the existing house and the new building where there's parking, we have 2 wall sconce lights, which I identified on sheet SP4. You can see it's W1 is that light. It's like a box light that goes onto the wall. And then we have a couple of pole lights, which are identified as P4s. And those pole lights have, they go up 12 feet, and they have they're segmented into 3 areas, and we would have a blackout of the backlight control where we don't want the light to shine. So we could shine in 2 directions, but not the back. So we can keep the light out of the neighbor because it's blocked off, but the other two angles illuminate out into our property. And you can see the photometric pattern on the plan, on the lighting plan, which you can see almost no light goes behind the fixture. It all shines toward the lot. So, and then the garden area is really just has a few incidental ground lights. That's just that's just incidental. It's just little ground lights if somebody wants to walk the dog at night. But other than that, it's not a real pedestrian way or anything. And at the entrance, we have more of those bollards that illuminate the footway to the entry door. Also has the bollards. So that's it.
Will any of those lights spill onto adjoining properties?
Well, for 2 reasons. They are designed not to, specifically, and also the fencing around would also prevent it. But basically, the lights are designed to not do that. The chart you can see on the photometric chart that very little light spillage goes behind the fixture. It's all
okay.
Yeah.
There's a comment in Graham Petto's planning memorandum regarding the existing PSE&G light. You familiar with that light fixture that's already there?
Yes, yes, I am. It's been there forever. It's been there, for a very long time. And I don't have I don't know how I could report what the light intensity is there, or even report how much it would disturb anyone. Only thing I could say is that it is very far away from anything, from everything. I mean, the property surrounded by garages and backyards, essentially. It's quite a long distance to any other building. The other thing is that it does shine directly down. I have seen it at night, and it does not glow laterally. It's pretty much like down, like that parking lot. That's it. So I don't know if there's something we can do to put a guard on it or what, but I don't think it needs it. It doesn't appear to need it. Let's put it that way. I've seen it at night. It does not appear to need it. But I leave it to the board. Okay.
All right. Have you seen the report from the board engineer regarding this application?
Yes.
Okay, and that, for the record, is from Suburban Consulting Engineers dated September 14, 2020. Can you address the engineer's comments, particularly comments 1, 2, 3, and 5?
Yes. The first one has to do with a calculation. I was off by a few square feet, and I correct. I had the wrong total down, and I corrected it. It's been done.
Okay.
As far as the amount of impervious coverage, there was a 156 square foot discrepancy, and I fixed it. Okay.
Okay. Comment 2. John?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. I can now. Can you address comment number 2 in the engineer's report?
Yes. Comment number 2 had to do with I had called for a curb along the exit driveway to be perforated in order to allow some of the water runoff to travel to the east, which is what it's doing now. But the engineer thought it best to not allow it to do that, but instead direct that water down the driveway. So I took away the perforated curb and replaced it with a solid curb, and that's been done on the drawings.
Okay. Comment 3 regarding the roof drains.
Yes, I have indicated now on the on SP1 the locations of the downspouts, and I have directed them in the way that he has said, which is essentially he wants the downspouts going towards the street, and apparently he wants the groundwater to head its natural way, but the roof water to head the other way. So I did that.
Okay. And finally, skipping over number 4 for now, comment 5.
Yes. Yeah, it asks for a do not enter sign, which in its SP1 on the extreme right side, just above the title block, we show the sign. And then on the plan by the entrance, by the exit, we have a do not exit sign directing any cars to not enter through the exit.
Okay.
And
So
the DOT, we followed the DOT guidelines.
okay. Just so the board knows, I'm only skipping over comment 4 because my next witness is going to address that in his testimony. All right, and then finally, John, have you seen the report from the Historic Preservation Commission dated September 3, 2020?
Yes.
Okay, can you discuss that report and what, if anything, you've done to attempt to comply with the HPC's comments and recommendations?
Yes. I guess the first few comments are very broad. It says like the proposed new building does not read well in elevation. It talks about hierarchy, order, balance. Honestly, this stuff can be addressed, but it's very subjective. I'm not sure, how to proceed with that. I did address the other things, which will probably touch on some of these. For example, the grouped windows separated by mullions. What we did, if you look at the elevation on sheet SP2, the windows now have the spacing between them that they recommend. We also put in the historic sill, the window sills that they recommend. We are exposing the rafter tails. The the garage doors on the garage are now 2 doors instead of 1. We did that. We changed that. A couple of things are required that I discussed with the owner, like the elimination of vinyl fencing, replacing with wood or some other material. And then they ask about the new trellis. I indicated that it would be painted wood or wood composite. It would not be plastic. So, and then the new retaining wall should be constructed of materials that predominate historically. Engineered block retaining walls are discouraged. In this case, the amount of wall is so limited. It's like 2 courses. It's just enough to sit on. So it's not very impactful. And I'm thinking that if I pick the right retaining wall block, one that is not so engineered but more rustic, I think that might do the trick. So I will do my best to select something that does not look too I don't know, commercial and modern. What else? They asked for a roof plan, which we provided. They want to know where all the roof leaders are. You can see them on the elevational drawings on SP2. So whatever we could address that is the concrete, that we could actually do something about, we did. But some of this other stuff is a little bit subjective, and I'd be willing to do my very best to, you know, to address it to the best I can. Even to the point of shifting the location of a window here and there, or changing the pitch of a roof to make things more harmonious. I'm happy to do it, you know. But I'd be shooting in the dark. I don't know what my target is right now. So,
Okay.
All right.
Given the location of the proposed new building in the rear of the property, how much of that building will be visible from Walnut Street, in your opinion?
Oh, you'll just see little fragments of it. Like you'd have to look between the building at, you know, on the same lot, the 2-family, and the neighboring building, and as you'd only see a very narrow cone of vision between the two. You'll see it, but you'll see it obliquely, like at a very oblique angle. There's really, unless you walk into the back of the site, you really don't see an entire wall of the building. You see a part of a corner, a part of a side, but you never see, unless you walk or drive into the lot, into the site behind the existing building, it's just fragments. Facing the back of the existing building on the ground floor, we basically put like carriage house doors, 4 of them. And you can see them on sheet SP2, north front elevation. So, you know, you can see they're brown like carriage house doors set in stucco openings, and we just tried to make it as you know, as friendly, I guess, if you want to call it that, as possible. We broke the building up. You see, there's a lot of roofs, there's a lot of turns, a lot of peaks, there's a lot of, you know, I did not want huge blank walls. That was the thing. So that was my way of doing it. So.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Guadagnoli, Mr. Chairman.
We'll start questioning with Mr. Fleischer.
Hello?
Can we go back to the site plan, please?
Site plan, yes. SP1?
Yes.
Very good.
I guess I'm not seeing it all. Okay. How is the trash dealt with? I understand where it's placed. And what's the responsibility of getting it from way back in the property out to the curb, or how is that being handled, and who's got the responsibility for that?
Who takes the trash away?
I want to know how the trash is buried quite deeply in there. If someone from the front building wants to do it, they're going to walk about 150 feet back into the site to put the trash in there. I also ultimately want to know how that trash goes from that trash enclosure out to the street. Who's responsible for that? Does everybody take their own trash can out? How's it going to work? Because it's not clear, other than the fact that you've provided something, but it doesn't say anything to me about how that whole process is managed, or how that trash goes from where you've provided it, which is quite deep into the property, how it gets to the curb. So that's what I'm asking.
Well, it doesn't get to the curb. I assumed that a truck would come in and back up, and they would throw the trash in the truck, and the truck would drive off.
Who's responsible for that? That's what I'm trying to understand. Who is responsible for it? Is it the developer that's responsible for it? Is this some type of condominium association? Who's responsible for arranging for the removal? Just saying we don't know is not an answer other than the fact that we placed it somewhere.
Well,
The
I
owner would
think-
have to arrange that. That's an arrangement the owner would make.
Yeah.
You know.
If I could just elaborate on that, Mr. Fleischer, there's no intention to create a condominium or any other association. So this
Okay.
would be no different than really any other multifamily property where the owner of the property, namely my clients, would have to arrange for trash removal and disposal, just like any other multifamily property owner does.
And I'm, to get what I will call a garbage truck back there is not so easy, nor is the turn out to get it out again. It's in an awkward spot that's very tight, surrounded by parking spaces, surrounded by cars parked, a very tight turn into the exit driveway. It's tight. It's not, this is a site plan approval, and I'm trying to understand. It's good to say there's something back there. I'm trying to understand how it works, because when I look at it, I'm not so sure it works very well, and I think it's a pretty tough deal to get a garbage truck back there for the 7 units that we have on the site. That's why I'm asking the question. And if it hasn't been thought about, someone ought to be thinking about it, other than to say it's going to get done, because it's in a bad spot for trucks to try to turn around. If it goes in forward, where's it going to figure out how to back up? And then how does it get back out again? Because it's got to make all these turns in a fairly tight site. So that's the question I'm asking, and I don't know if anybody's really looked at it other than to say we have a spot that we're calling a trash holding area. And the architect certainly has to look at it from the standpoint of turning radiuses and other things for a truck, if that's what's going back there, to get in and out of the site. And it's not evident to me that any type of large-sized truck can actually make the turns that would have to be made. It's one thing for cars to make those turns. It's another thing for a trash removal vehicle to make those turns. So I am concerned about the placement and the way it's set up at the moment.
Okay.
I think I can represent on behalf of my client, Mr. Fleischer. I mean, it's valid points you're making, no doubt. But if a vehicle can't be used, can't access that location, then, I think it's fair to say the owner would arrange for someone to move those cans out to the curb, because it's a residential property and trash would be picked up by the town at the curb. So it would be a matter of having someone, an employee presumably, or superintendent, what have you, to move out to the street twice a week for trash pickup, however many cans it might be for 7 units.
Is there going to be a superintendent on site, or is it someone who just come in on twice a week to pull the garbage forward? Because I know something that puts a condition on there that allows for that, because I'm not satisfied with the way it's structured now. It's really quite deep into the site and very hard to get to for a vehicle.
I understand it, and I'm not sure whether my clients who are on the phone have really made determinations regarding that, but I can obviously check with them and advise the board.
Going further, in the 5-unit building, you have tandem parking spaces, one behind the other.
Yes.
How much space do you have between the parking stalls and the front of that building? Because the maneuvering of tandem cars out of there is not so easy, because where does that car go? And if that car has to go out onto the street and come back around, it's a pretty, again, quite tight from a traffic perspective in that area, especially with the tandem parking in those garages.
Well, there's let me see here. There's 24 feet from the garage door to the first parking spot, the back of the first parking spot. There's a 24-foot wide aisle.
So one car backs out and goes where while the other car that's in front of it gets out of its stall?
I'm not following. So
You have tandem spaces in there. You have more spaces than are technically required, as I recall from the calculation.
yes,
You have tandem spaces in there, and you have a fairly tight condition where there are cars parked on the opposite side. You have the driveway, which I understand, but in a tandem condition, a car has to come out of the garage, get out of the way of the interior car, and has to do something while it's there. So either back, what I'm trying to make sure of is we don't have cars that have to back out, literally go out the exit driveway, and when the second car comes out, go back around to the entry driveway to re-enter the garage, because you don't have a lot of float space in there.
well, there are
So
more.
I'm trying to figure out what happens as that's happening, that's all.
Okay, there are more spots that, like you said, than we need. So it's safe to say that there'll be a spot or two open that somebody can just temporarily back into, should they not arrange their cars properly. I mean, I think after a while, you know who gets out, who leaves first in the morning and who leaves second. And then many of these people don't even have two cars. I just provide it because that's what was required, but not everybody has two cars. And those that do, like I said, there's more parking than is required. So there will be some empty spaces to temporarily move your car into while you get the other car out. That was the assumption anyway.
I know you spoke to the historic preservation, very clear on what you plan to do. And I just wanted to get a reaction of what you had, because you certainly didn't go down the list of the 19 items there. And I don't, my point is, I don't want to make you're meeting their needs. I want to know what you're not going to do that they've asked for.
Okay.
Because then we can make a determination as to what we understand you're not going to do, because alternatively, if you're going to go back to them, we still need to figure out what you're planning to do. And there was no formal response to this other than the few general answers you gave about, well, those are kind of general questions. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. Presumably, you're going to go back to them and show them things. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what the intention is.
Well, the intention is to satisfy it as much as we can. I mean, when I say as much as we can, I mean, I have no objection. If I could satisfy everything, I would. There might be, though, they may never like my building. No matter what I do, they might just say, no, I don't know. You know, so I'm just saying I'll do the very best I can. But I just hope they like it and give me the nod, you know, but a lot of the comments would have to do with proportion and you know, to be honest, at the time I designed the building, I wasn't thinking it's a new building. I wasn't thinking in terms of like preserving anything. I'm replacing an old building, and I just thought I'm doing a new one. But if I have to, you know, if I have to comply to certain standards that they've come up with, I'll do it. I have no objection to it.
I'm having trouble hearing because somebody's not muted.
Right?
Someone's not muted, and there's a lot of background noise. I understand that. What I was looking to do is they have a list of 19 specific things. I know you said the first two things were general. They have a list of 19 specific things. Are there any things in that specific list that you don't feel you can accommodate them on? I understand the general issue and the fact that they may not like your design. I've been through that myself so many times. I get that.
Right.
I'm trying to find out in the specific comments they've made whether or not you feel you can comply with what they've asked for.
No, I would say there were two areas which I would like to discuss. Well, really just one. Sorry, one area, just one thing, and that has to do with the fencing. I want to make sure it's okay with my client that we not go with a vinyl fence as I've indicated, and go with something that might need some maintenance. You know, so that was the only thing I would really want to review with my client. But other than that, No, I'm okay with it. The rest of it, I've already done more than half of them.
I thought there was a question about the siding on the existing building. In fact, I'm certain there's a comment about the siding on the existing building with regard to,
Item number 5.
okay.
They just simply identify what the dominant materials on the block are. And I presume that they're suggesting I go along with that. I'm assuming that's what they mean.
That's not the one I'm talking about. Then there was one that specifically spoke to the vinyl siding on the existing building.
If I could help, Mr. Fleischer, it's comment number 15, which encouraged the applicant to remove the vinyl siding on the existing house.
And I don't want a record that says he's going to do everything he can, when he certainly could do that, but I have no idea whether the applicant or the architect plan on doing that. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, John, can you address that?
Well, this is pertaining to the existing house, the one on Walnut.
That's what I just said. They've asked you to do something, and if you're not going to do, I'm just trying to find out what it is in the list that you're not going to do. If that's one of the things they've asked for or suggested, and you're not going to do it, I want it on the record that you're not going to do it. Because when we approve it, I don't want to just make reference to this big historic document and say the applicant said they're going to do everything in the document when you're not planning on doing something. So I'm asking you to be quite explicit about all the various points that you either will or will not comply with the recommendation. That may have no impact on whether we approve the site plan. I just feel for the record, we ought to know in advance of the approval.
Right.
My answer would be that we have to ask, I would like to ask my client that. It's not for me to answer, it's his existing building. It's not the building I designed. I wasn't retained to do anything on that building. So you'd have to ask him.
John,
I think they're here.
John, let me, Mr. Fleisch, if you don't mind, let me see if I can help. John, there's no intention to remove the vinyl siding from the existing house. Is that correct?
Not as far as I know. Right.
Okay. All right. So that's basically a polite no to that request, right? Why don't you just very quickly, while we're looking at the second page there, it's got numbers 6 through 19. I think in your testimony earlier, you seem to indicate that a lot of those things were acceptable and they already complied. But can you just go down number by number very quickly and indicate, because I think that's what Mr. Fleischer is looking for, and all of us would like to know exactly what's okay and what's not okay.
Okay. Number 6, I did provide a roof plan showing the location of roof drainage, ridges, dormers, and what they asked for. It's that plan is on sheet number SP2 in the middle of the page. It says roof plan, so it shows all the angles and divisions.
And that's all, and I just want to confirm, and that's all in compliance with the engineer's report. Because the engineer's report essentially says nothing's been responded to and nothing had changed. If you read the engineer's report, it keeps saying almost every item, we gave you these comments and they were never changed. So now I'm trying to find out whether the comment 6 related to drainage is consistent with the engineering person's plans for the drainage on the site.
Yes, the engineer wanted to know where the roof leaders were. So did the historic people, and they're shown on the elevation drawing, the color elevation drawings on SP2. You can see the roof leaders running down the wall. I show that.
Hey, Joe, it's Mike Sullivan. The engineer's report from Suburban Consultants is dated September 14. They're reviewing a plan that has a revision date of August 20. Our plan's got a September 25 date, revised October 7th. So when the applicant went through that report and indicated these items have been addressed, we just haven't received a subsequent report yet.
No, I understand that, but I'm not sure he actually went through all of them.
Well, he did.
Okay. I listened pretty carefully, but that's okay.
He did with the exception of item 4.
Right. We covered the engineer's report except for item 4, but I think what we're trying to find out now is, again, what comments of the HPC are acceptable or not acceptable. And John, if you could just go through them quickly. If you've already made the changes, you can just, or that they're acceptable, just say so.
Okay.
And it's more important, I think, to identify the comments that, are not acceptable or you have a problem with.
Yeah, number 8, again, this is another subjective one, but again, I will do my very best. It's like, should we create a harmonious composition? I will move things around to maybe make it a little less random. I can definitely do that. So I intend to do that. Yes, I will.
Okay.
Number 9, group windows historically separated by mullions. We already fixed that. I put a spacer between all the windows so that they're not like bunched together, but have like a 6-inch gap between them, which is what they were asking for.
Thank you.
Wood or composite are the preferred material for new windows. All new windows shall be fitted with historic sill. We put the sill in on the drawing. We showed a 2.5-inch thick window sill there. And yeah, we won't use vinyl windows or anything. It'll be wood or composite.
Thank you.
Window pane sizes should be similar between all windows. We changed the grilling on the windows to do exactly that. We already did that. The second floor window sill should not intrude into the string course. We fixed that too. We moved the sill up, and that band that runs around the building is no longer interfered with by the bottom of the window. Will the rafter tails be exposed? The answer is yes. Historic original buildings should be retained as noted in the Township of Montclair's historic design guidelines, as it can be viewed from the public right of way. I think they're talking about the garage. I think they're talking about because that's an outbuilding. And I think what they seem to be saying is to leave the garage as it is, but refurbish it. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but if that's the case, be happy to do that too. That's fine.
But we're changing the design of the garage.
We're changing the garage.
Yes, yeah, we are. But I mean, if they're saying now that we should leave it but fix it the way it is, okay, but they're not being clear here. It just says it should be retained as noted in the Montclair Historic Design Guidelines, as it can be viewed from the public right of way. You can see it from the street. If
can it be seen from the street?
How can it?
I don't understand how it's seen from the street.
The garage, you can barely see it because it's behind that other building. It's barely visible.
Okay.
It says an original outbuilding. That's the only original outbuilding there is. I assume that's what they mean. So I could certainly ask them what they're talking about, and I'll comply. I will comply with that. No problem.
Okay. We answered 15 already.
Yes. The 2-bay garage door has been used 2 single doors. We did that. We changed it. You can see that on SP1 at the bottom of the page.
Right.
All right. Number 17, the vinyl fencing. Let me just talk to my client about that. I'll change it. If it's okay with them, it's okay with me. I'm fine. I want to do it. Can I just concur with them?
One last question, then I'll let people ask. The garage, which is basically touching the property line. Your elevations and everything show gutters and leaders, but you talked about somehow cutting it back. I'm not sure how that happens if it literally is on the line now. And that's the basic roof line, not the line of the gutters, which you show on the elevation. So something is not going to work as perfectly as we'd like with the garage remaining in that position in terms of that property line. If you're putting the leaders on and everything else, that you can cut it back to not overlap the property line. I don't know the answer to it, by the way, but I'm not sure how you accomplish it.
Well, we would certainly cut back the overhang so that did not go over the line. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. We see that I've gotten cut off momentarily. Sorry. The first thing I want to do is get exactly how close are we to the property line? Do we have 4 inches, 2 inches, no inches? I can't put a gutter there, obviously, or I'm sorry, an overhang there, so I won't. Right.
I don't know if there's an answer to that, but what I'm trying to avoid is a situation where, in order to make it fit, we don't have the gutters there and the water flows onto the adjacent property.
Oh, I see.
Since it's a pitched roof.
Yeah,
If it was a flat roof, it could be easy. You'd be going in the opposite direction, no issue.
right.
So with this pitched roof, the water's gonna go there if you have nothing to cut it. And if you can't extend far enough to put the gutters on, I don't know how you deal with the problem.
Yeah,
That's my point. And I'm just asking the question because in theory, approving it with something that absolutely requires it to go over the property line, I don't know how to answer that either.
well, I may have to change the geometry of the back of that roof just in that far corner to direct the water to the back and catch it there. I may have to do something with the way that roof comes down in that far corner so I don't spill into the neighbor. And we're talking about a very small area, just the very tip of that roof. You know, yeah, that's a little, the first thing I have to ascertain is how close to the property line are we at that spot? And that'll tell me how much, you know.
Okay, that's what I'm asking you to pay attention to.
Yeah, good question.
And take it from there.
Yeah.
I'm done, Mr. Harrison.
Okay, Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Mr. Simon, do you have any questions?
Joe covered a lot of what I was going to ask, but one other question I had was regarding the mail. How is the mail going to be handled for that back building?
Oh, if you look near the front door on sheet SP1, you see the trellis, that square, that box I have there, where you enter the building. There's a little box that says mail. There'll be a common mailbox right there.
So is the post office going to walk through past the first primary building to that second slot that's already been confirmed?
Presumably, yeah, if they know where it is. Or they will drive onto the property with the mail truck and drop it off that way. I'm not sure how they handle something like that. But there are mailboxes for everybody.
Because I would think that's a similar question as the way the garbage is handled for the property manager, because if that's private property, I don't see the mail trucks driving through the driveways. So I think that's something that should be addressed as well.
Okay, maybe we move it closer to the street then. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Sure.
Mr. McCullough, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Going back to SP2, my questions have to do with the garage, with the indoor garage. So first of all, is there some kind of ventilation for those garages? Because those 4 spaces are adjacent to the ground floor unit. So what are you doing in order to make sure that automobile fumes outside and don't remain inside the garage or into the hallway?
Yeah, that would be handled more as part of the when we do the construction drawings. You know, when we do the ventilation for the building. One thing we did was the garages are 1 step down from the hallway. You step down.
Okay.
This way, if there are any gasoline fumes, they stay near the bottom, near the floor, and do not migrate into the hallway. Secondly, the floors are pitched, so if there is a gasoline spill or anything like that, it would go toward the door and not toward the hallway. As far as the ventilation, yeah, I mean, obviously the 2 end units can just have natural ventilation. Just put an opening or grill or something. We'd have to introduce fresh air to those internal 2, whether through the garage doors or through a transfer grill of some sort. But we will be ventilating the space so we don't get like dead air in there for long periods of time.
So are the garage doors, are those electric or are those manual?
I would they would be electric, you know, like an opener. Yeah. You know,
Okay.
a button. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, that leads to my third question, and that is about controlling noise. So, I mean, because you have not only the vehicles in an area that is adjacent to that ground floor apartment, but then you also have another apartment which is built on top of the garage. And so what is your thinking in terms of materials to curtail the amount of noise, including the noise of those garage doors opening and closing.
Right. Okay. The garage structure, the perimeter is made of concrete block, so that will deaden a lot of sound that will disturb the ground floor unit that's adjacent to it. Plus, there's a hallway between that unit and the garage. As far as the unit above, two things happen. The garages have to have a 5/8" fire code drywall or sheetrock up in the ceiling, 2 layers, in fact. So that will be a very dense and heavy thing. The other thing is that the doors themselves will be a fiberglass, which open and close much more quietly than wood or a metal door would. The fiberglass doors are very quiet. So it should be, will it be 100% silent? Probably not, but, those are the steps we would take.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
Yes, can you talk a little bit about the entrance sign? What size are the letters that you're proposing?
Yeah. I haven't gotten into the graphics of the letter, but I can say that the sign itself is compliant in terms of height and width and area. But I've not gotten into the font size of the entry. We would hire a sign person for that, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, I guess depending on what the name actually is, I don't know how effective it would be to have it on the sign as opposed to just the building number and the entrance marker.
Well, the main thing is the address, I suppose. I don't recall what the name of the facility will be. The owner told me, and I don't remember now. They told me over the phone. I don't remember. If the name requires more space, then I'll make the other thing smaller. But I'll work within the limits of what the sign can be,
Ms. Harris, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, no further questions, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Caulfield, do you have any questions?
Hi, just 2 questions. John?
Yes.
On Graham Petto's report that he put out, there's a picture of the detached garage. It looks like there's a 1-story part of that garage and then a 2-story. I'm kind of confused on what that.
Yeah, it looks like a mill or something. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Are you taking that back portion down, or like how does that work in that?
Yeah, it is. The back portion is very quaint. I wouldn't mind leaving it, but the problem is we have that flat roof, which looks very commercial. And so in an effort to give it a more residential look, we just gave it a standard peaked roof, It has that, that little tower in the back. Yes. I don't know if it's occupiable or anything. I don't think so.
Your proposed garage, is it going to be less in height than what is presently existing, you think?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. You
Okay.
you can see the outline of what is there now versus what we're proposing. Yeah.
Okay. And it's not like you're going to knock down this garage to fit, like you can do the work that you want to do on this garage to knock down that higher portion. Is that?
Oh, I just did it because, I was trying to really eliminate that flat part. By the way.
Oh, I see. You're pitching it up that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. John, last question. On the westerly side of the building, there are about 6 trees on that are going to be very close to the foundation of the new existing building. I slightly do have some concerns about, I don't know, the future of those trees, especially their root base. Any thoughts about the thoughts of those trees and the protection of them? I'm not sure if that is your specialty, but if you have any thoughts, thank you.
No. Okay. Yeah. No. The answer honestly is I don't know. Those trees are not on. They're kind of on the property line and they are clustered very close together to each other. They're entangled. I'm not sure what the health of those trees are now. And so yes, I wouldn't doubt that some of those trees are going to suffer as a result of what we're doing.
Yep.
I guess it remains to be seen once we dig what we'll find, but I would suspect we're going to lose a couple of them. I think so.
Okay, it's just that it would be the homeowner's responsibility, the other homeowner's responsibility to take them down. I don't know. I'm just slightly concerned. I'm not sure what we can do, but all right, thank you so much.
Remember, it's a garage, not a basement there, so we're not going down that far, footing wise. So, we might dodge a bullet there.
Okay, Ms. Gilmore, do you have any questions?
Yes. Do you have has any consideration been given to, and I think this is in the same vein as the garbage truck, shoveling snow? Any consideration been given to that?
You mean like where to put the snow after you plow it?
Yeah, where you will put it, will it be the responsibility of the tenants, or how will it be handled?
I would think that the property owner would make a contract with a company to do that. I think that's kind of like one of those common usage things. I haven't addressed it because I know nothing about it, but that would be the question for the owner, I think.
Thank you.
I think I can state on behalf of the owner that there'll be a snow plowing service arranged. The tenants are not going to be shoveling snow, and that all of the driveways and parking areas would be plowed. And that would be arranged by the owner, obviously.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a number of questions. I guess let me start with simpler things. My understanding from your testimony is that the plans we have that were revised on October 7th, those address the comments 1, 2, 3, and 5 in the engineer's memo, and you're now in compliance with those 4 comments. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to what Mr. Caulfield was asking you about the existing garage. And my goal here is to try and see if we can do something to address, to both avoid an encroachment and to deal with the stormwater. And I see the picture of what the garage is going to look like. I see the picture of what it does look like, and I've been to the property a number of times, but it's not clear to me exactly what you're going to be doing to the existing structure to turn it into looking like the proposed structure, given the two different heights of the existing building.
I would completely remove the roof of the existing building and replace it with the one on the drawing.
Okay, but how would it be the height of the rear higher portion or the height of the?
Oh, well, if you look at do you see on the bottom of the page, there's a front elevation, and next to it, there's a side elevation of the garage. Do you see that at the bottom?
Yes.
SP1? You can see a dotted line indicating the profile of what's there now versus what I'm proposing.
Right. So my interpretation of that is you're basically removing the top half of that rear portion.
I'm removing the entire rear portion and the front portion. I'm taking the entire existing roof structure away, and I'm replacing it with a new peaked one that is compliant, by the way. It's less than 15 feet tall.
I'm not at all concerned with the height. I'm concerned about the near encroachment to the adjoining property. But you're not just removing the roof. I assume you're removing that wall of the rear portion. That's the front of the rear portion.
Yes.
And I think and how are you, and your drawing is that cross elevation showing that you're also shrinking what I'll call the even the front building will not be as high as portion of the building. Is that correct?
You know what? If you kind of cut out in the mid-sentence, so I didn't hear everything you said. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so while the roof will be higher than what exists on the front, it appears, how is the existing front wall where the doors are, what is happening with that?
Well, currently it's I think it's one large door. I don't recall, but we're going to be putting 2 new doors in 2 openings.
And those doors are shown going basically up to the roof elevation. There's just a slight difference in the they're where they are and where the roof is, and then the roof gradually gets higher as it goes down.
Yes, the existing roof goes on a flat slope up to that rear tower.
And then, I assume you're going to have to remove a portion of. I'm not seeing a dimension on your plans. How deep is the garage currently?
Oh, the existing garage?
Yeah.
It's, let's see here, 25 feet deep by 18 feet wide, roughly, yeah.
I guess what I'm not sure if this may not work. But is there a way you could step back that rear portion of the roof where it's basically abutting the property line?
Yes. Yes.
Because that may be the solution, and then you should be able to control the stormwater to keep it on the property. Because even if you cut back so it's not extending over, it's going to drip off the roof right onto that property.
That's exactly what I was thinking, yes. In other words, the roof will not terminate on the property line, but rather terminate a little bit inward to fit a gutter, yes.
And then I've now covered. I want to go back to the historic preservation review. We covered most of the items, but then we didn't do the beginning and the very end. But I guess my basic question is, why didn't you appear at the Historic Preservation Commission meeting?
The last one?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was happening. I got a call from Grand Pedal. I was in my car. I was out of state. I had no idea that it was happening. I was not told. I didn't know. So that's why I didn't miss it on purpose. I just was not around.
No, I'm sure you didn't. I'm trying to understand because obviously this would have been better if you had had a chance to go over the comments from their consultant with them. But let me, and just, again, so we're sure what conditions we are and are not putting in our approval. Their first comment is this is a preliminary review, and so we're skipping over that. And we're beyond the second condition of providing a streetscape view. So number 3 says the proposed design of the new residential building is not compatible with nearby buildings in terms of scale, massing, and proportion. And your basic comment response to this was vague and you didn't know what to do. Other than the specific changes that we've discussed, are you doing anything further to comply with this condition?
Yeah, yes, I am. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
What would that be?
Well, that would be, for example, re-examining the outside, the elevation. And I noticed that, for example, I have a lot of offsets, like where a window below doesn't align with a window above, or where, let's say, there's an unnecessary cut in the wall. I would try to make the building a little more, little less cluttered, not cluttered, what's the word? A little less staticky, and a little more harmonious, where things line up more conventionally, where maybe roof pitches are a little steeper, where we avoid, for example, hip roofs and stick with just gables, so that we comply more with that Victorian or a more old-fashioned kind of a sensibility. The other thing is the materials. I show some stone on the ground floor. Well, I think maybe brick might be better, because there are some brick buildings in the neighborhood, and so maybe we'll recall that. So yes, the answer is yes. I can address a lot of that right off the bat. Sure.
Okay, so, what you were saying largely went to number 4, and number 5. Number 4 is the new building does not read well in elevation. There is no order, hierarchy, balance, or scale. And then number 5 is the dominant materials along the block are wood and brick. And okay, okay. I know what I'm doing, and I don't want you to make you to redesign the entire elevations of the buildings. Okay, you had indicated that you were wanting to discuss with your client, this is number 17, the vinyl fencing. Is that you still want to discuss with the applicant?
Yeah. Yes, please. Yes.
And then my understanding is that the trellis you're going to make out of wood.
Yes, painted. Yeah.
And you indicated you're not compliant. You don't want to comply with number 19. That you want to use engineered block. You'll use nicer engineered block, but you still want to use that. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think. And just, but in terms of the mailbox, I think that the condition that makes sense is that we simply require you to talk to the post office and they will tell you where they want it. And I don't think I'm going to have any problem no matter what they say in terms of location. And, I think the logical way to deal with the garbage recycling is to put a condition on that requires that the applicant, prior to the building being occupied, submit a plan to the planning office as to how garbage recycling, snow removal will be handled by the property owner, and then we'll know what the provisions are. Just let me look at my notes, make sure everything else was covered. Okay, I have no further questions. Any board members have any further questions before I open it up to the public?
Just a quick follow-up. We've been talking about this garage, the existing one, but what's left is nowhere near what the existing structure was, character-wise or otherwise. And so we're maintaining a piece of the footprint, but not the entire footprint. It's like an odd mix. And though I understand the basic concept of historic structures and visibility and everything else, there's a real question of whether or not we couldn't simply provide a new garage there that left some room between the property line and the structure and other things, or maybe use that building in a slightly different way since we're over on the overall parking count anyway for the site. Dealing with that structure, it's certainly not going to look like the historic structure. It's essentially a new garage when all is said and done. And I don't know what's gained by keeping it in that spot right up on the property line. I don't know what's gained by anybody, including the applicant. So it's just a thought that maybe there's a better approach. I would then offer something else just for the applicant. We have a carriage house situation where we were able to get the carriage house a separate address. And in fact, the post office does deliver to a separate mailbox even though they have to go down the driveway to do it. So the applicant may be able to make that kind of arrangement when they have that discussion with the postal facilities. Because I'm not sure how they're handling the other utilities going into the new building, but I assume they're going to be on a separate gas line or have direct service electrically, so there may be the ability to actually create a separate address in the back there from the different than the building that's up front, and that may give them some flexibility. But at least I wanted to put on the table the notion of maybe we're not really saving the building, and therefore maybe we're trying too hard to grant a bunch of variances for a very tight and difficult situation that, absent the need to save that building, since I don't believe it's really being saved, there could be a better solution for that portion of the site. I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from members of the board? Okay, and Janice, you want to open it up to the public? And are there any members of the public who either have, who at this point just have questions for this witness?
Hi. Yes, Madeline Loperena. I live at 85 North Fullerton Avenue. Good evening, board members, Mr. Chairman, and guests. I have a couple of questions regarding that parking, the two parking garage that sits right at the line of my property, or behind my property. What exactly is it that they're proposing? And are you removing it, fixing it, knocking it down? What is the proposal on that?
Shall I answer that?
Yes, you need to.
Hi, we're proposing to remove the entire roof of that structure. That means that high portion and the flat portion, and put in its place an ordinary peaked roof, like a gable roof, you know, the kind that's high in the middle and goes down to the sides. So it looks like a regular garage, like that anybody would have at their house, instead of having that tall kind of tower that's there. The walls of the building are to remain, but we're going to obviously, you know, repair it and all. But the size of the garage will not change, and the roof will be lower than what it is now. So
the side of the wall that's on my that I can see from my property needs a lot of repair.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So is that going to be repaired as part of this process?
Yes, it will. It has to be. It's in bad shape, and it's partly buried. It's partly underground. I know it rotted some of the wood there, so we have to repair that. Yes.
Yeah, there's animals living there as well.
Yeah.
Groundhogs, skunks, a bunch of other different things come into the property.
Right.
The other question I have is this is the first time I've come to any of these meetings. I've really hadn't heard anything about these variances being applied for up until September 15th, where I saw the first letter of these variances, and I had concerns when I first got it. Concerns that you were building another structure behind my property, one that's 3.5 stories high. At the moment, I have a 1-story, I guess, commercial building, you guys call it, that's behind me, and I'm okay with looking at that structure right now. A 3.5-story structure is going to infringe upon my view and the character of the backyard. Right now, it's a one red barn and a commercial property and a bunch of trees. So why does it have to be 3.5 stories high? First of all, that's going to create for us what I believe is going to be just changing the character of my backyard. The increase of noise from the additional cars, people, the construction that's going to happen. I don't know how long that construction is going to be, but mostly that it's going to change the character of my backyard. And I'll have more people looking into the backyard as another piece of property is being put behind my yard. Um, Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. Are you, okay, may I guess I'll answer. The building is 3 stories, not 3.5. It complies with the height requirements of 35 feet. So it's really no higher than any other ordinary house in Montclair. Secondly, your house, you're right behind that garage, is that correct?
Yeah, the garage is in my backyard.
Okay, your backyard is substantially higher up than the ground floor of this building. You know, like the ground slopes up, then there's like a high wall, and then it slopes up more. So your ground floor is even like the middle of this building. You know what I mean? Because you were really up on a hill compared to the building. So you know, if you look straight out, you'll probably see like the second or roof or second floor of this building. So, you know, the effect may not be as much as you suspect. It's only 3 stories and 35 feet. Most of the houses around here are at least 35, if not more. So, height-wise, it's not really impactful. Also, you'll never get shade from this building. You're too far away. The building isn't tall enough to create any kind of a sunblock problem or anything like that. So, you know, and you know, it won't be a very bad looking building either, and most of it will be covered by garages anyhow. So, I understand what you're saying, but the impact might be less than what you suspect.
Question regarding the construction. Since it will be behind my property, how is that going to affect I just put a new fence in. You know, how's that going to affect what is already in place?
Oh, you mean you put a new fence along the back property line?
I did.
Okay, well, we're not really, we're keeping the old retaining wall that's already there. There's a retaining wall there now that there's like a block wall that's there. We're keeping that. So you're behind that. So really, we're not going to be affecting your fence, except possibly from the corner of the garage to where that light pole is. There's a short distance there, which is the fence new? I mean, I don't know. I don't recall there being a new fence there, but maybe it's something new you just put there.
Yeah, I put it in this year.
Okay. Then the answer to your question is I don't know, because I haven't been on the property lately, and I didn't notice it. When I was taking the measurements and photographs, I guess that fence wasn't there. Well, certainly, if we damage the fence, it has to be replaced. You know, we're not going to leave you with a broken anything. So, you know, that's my answer. The fence will not be affected one way or the other.
And in order to fix that, I call it a red barn, but it's a part of the garage. You have to get on my property, correct?
I don't know. That would be up to the builder. If we did, we would certainly ask your permission, you know.
Okay. And then I also have concerns, just as the board members asked, about garbage removal. As I mentioned, we have a ton of different type of rodents in the backyard. And you know, my concern would be that with more people, more garbage, more of these, you know, the community animals. So I would love to see how that's going to be played out, because the garbage cans will be directly behind my property. And I really don't want to see an increase in what we've already gotten in the backyard.
Okay, do you have any further questions?
I do not. Thank you for the time.
Okay, are there any other members of the public who have questions for this witness? Okay, Mr. Trim, I'm going to call your next witness.
Yes, my next witness is William Stimmel.
Excuse me, wait, let me just make sure. Michelle Dogan, do you have any questions? Okay.
All right. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
William Stimmel, Stimmel. My professional address is P.O. Box 280, Rutherford, New Jersey.
Okay. Mr. Stimmel, you're a licensed professional engineer, correct? Professional planner, correct?
Yes.
And you testified in the prior application as a professional planner, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You are also a professional engineer, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just briefly provide your qualifications as a professional engineer so you can address one engineering question I'm going to ask you?
Certainly. I'm a graduate of NJIT with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. I've been employed for the past 20 years in the state of New Jersey as an engineer and a planner with a particular focus in traffic engineering. I've been a licensed engineer since 2004, a licensed planner since 2010. I'm a member of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, an adjunct professor at NJIT in the civil engineering department, and I've testified as an expert witness in engineering, planning, and traffic engineering issues in front of or on behalf of boards in over 70 municipalities in the state of New Jersey.
Okay. So Chairman, I'm again offering Mr. Stimmel as professional planner and also professional engineer.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Stimmel, you're obviously familiar with this property, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you're also familiar with the Montclair zoning ordinance insofar as it pertains to this application?
Yes.
Okay. And have you reviewed the site plan? And have you also heard Mr. Guadagnoli's testimony this evening?
Yes to both.
Okay. All right. So can you discuss for the board the 3 variances that the applicant is seeking and provide your analysis and opinion with regard to each of those 3 variances?
Yes, as the chairman and Mr. Trembulac had both indicated, the applicant was previously here for the D variance relief, the use variance relief, if you will. So from the planning perspective, most of the cleanup that remains relates to the C variances associated with the application. With the previous submittals, there had been 4 C variances, but the fence height has been lowered based on comments from the board at the last hearing, so we're down to 3 C variances. They're noted in Mr. Petto's September 10th, 2020 review letter. The first of the variances relates to the maximum building height where 2.5 stories are permitted. 3 stories are proposed for that rear building. It's in keeping with the height of the existing structure. The existing structure is 2.5 stories, but has a total height of approximately 35 feet. The height of the proposed structure at the rear of the property will be 35 feet. And it's also set back a substantial distance from Walnut Street, limiting the visual impact to passersby on Walnut. It's also screened by the existing 2.5 stories at the front of the site. The second setback is for the minimum rear yard setback, where 25% of the lot depth is 64.5 feet in this case. Obviously, this property is significantly deeper than most of the properties in the surrounding area. That's why there's that substantial rear yard setback requirement. What we're proposing is 15.3 feet. This partly stems from the need to provide parking and circulation areas between the existing building and the proposed, partly from the substantial depth of the subject property. And it should be noted that it's going to be an improvement over the existing condition. The existing auto repair, auto service building actually extends over the rear property line. So it's got a 0 setback or a negative setback. So we're proposing 15.3 feet, which is significant and a substantial improvement over the existing condition. And then the third setback, or the third C variance associated with the application is for the minimum accessory setback. So There's been a lot of discussion about that garage located on the westerly portion of the property. 6-foot setback would be required for that building. Right now, there's a 0-foot setback to the rear and 2.55 feet to the side. That's an existing condition, which is somewhat in flux, I suppose, based on the comments from the board. But in any case, the plan as submitted shows a reduction of the height of the building. So even though the physical dimension of the setback might not change, the reduction in the height reduces the impact of that setback. If based on some of the board comments, the building is relocated, reconstructed, cut back from the property line there, that would certainly be an improvement over the existing condition. So those are the 3C variances that are currently associated with the application, with the understanding that the accessory setback is a little bit in flux at the moment.
Whether those variances can be granted under either section C1 or C2 of the statute.
Certainly, I think the rear yard setback and the accessory setback relate to the hardship element of the C variance. I think typically when you present these cases with the D variance associated with them, you assume that the consideration of the C variances is rolled into a consideration of the use variance, because you're talking about a use that isn't permitted in the zone. In this case, we do have the bifurcated application, but I think there's certainly an understanding that the plans as presented more or less mirror what was previously presented when we made the appearance for the use variance, just with greater depth and attempt to address many of the comments that the board had made and the board professionals had made as well. But I think those two relate to the hardship aspect, because you're talking about the exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property, or by reason of exceptional or unique topographic conditions, physical features, or a situation uniquely affecting a specific property, or the structures lawfully existing thereon, which would apply to the garage. As far as the flexible C variance goes, I think that is more related to the building height requirement. I think this is certainly an unusual case, to have this large, oddly shaped property with the commercial use at the back and what is primarily a residential zone. I think a lot of the benefits to the health, safety, morals, and general welfare, if you will, come from removing that type of use, which is not only is the use not permitted in the zone, it's of a type of use which is not permitted in the zone. So I think much of the benefit of this project comes from eliminating that building. With the proposed residential structure at the rear of the site exceeding the height limit in stories, but again, not in feet, in a way of thinking, the structure is akin to a 2.5-story building, because a lot of times what you have, a zoning ordinance will permit you a full story on the ground floor, a full story on the second floor, and then let's say the half story is under the pitched roof of the attic level or the top level. In this case, we've sort of turned that upside down. We've got a half story on the ground level because of the presence of the garages. So we provided the garages to reduce the coverage on the site and to make sure that there was adequate parking. And then the remainder of that first floor is one apartment. And then the second and third floors are full stories. So we comply with the height. I think we comply with the intensity of the use intended, but we do deviate from the standard, which is 2.5 stories. As far as the negative criteria, again, based on my evaluation of the site, the testimony that was provided, the plans that have been submitted, I don't see any substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment to the intent and purposes of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. Certainly the two existing conditions, I think the site is not going to impact that. And the height deviation, I think, is a minor exceedance and it is below the requirement in terms of the height in feet. So I don't see any negative impact associated with that either.
Okay. Are you familiar with Section 76 of the Municipal Land Use Law, which deals with bifurcated applications such as this?
Yes, I am.
All right, and can you just explain what that statute provides or requires with respect to this application for site plan approval?
Right, so the municipal land use law allows for applicants to attempt to bifurcate their application, and typically what that is separating the use portion of the application from the formal preparation of the site plan. And depending on the particulars of an individual site, the C variances can be considered either or with the use or at a later time. So in this case, the applicant is here requesting the site plan approval as well as the C variance approval. And the bifurcation of the application requires a specific demonstration that granting the site plan approval, granting the C variance approval, again, the same negative criteria, can be done without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purposes of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. Based on the testimony provided in my review of the application materials, my review of the subject property, I don't see a substantial detriment to the public good here. I think eliminating the commercial use from the zone is an overwhelming benefit, and the key aspect of this project that got it through the use variance process and hopefully we'll get it through this portion of the process as well. I don't see any substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance. I think certainly this site is somewhat unique in nature. And I think the overall benefit to the community is notable from the redevelopment of the property as it's proposed.
Okay. Then briefly, if you could switch hats for a minute and put on your engineering hat. I'd like you to address comment number 4 in the board engineer's report.
Yes, so this is
fire vehicle access.
Yes, this is from the September 14th report from Suburban Consulting. Comment number 4 states that the site plan indicates a passenger vehicle traversing from the entry drive out the exit drive. There is no data indicate that a fire truck will be able to execute the same maneuver. The ability of a fire apparatus to reach the proposed 5-family and then exit the property must be considered, and the site plan should be reviewed by the fire official. I spoke to Mr. Trembulac earlier today, and it's my understanding that we haven't at present received any comments from the fire department. Certainly the ability of fire trucks to access the site is a valid concern. I did take a look at the site plan prepared by Mr. Guadagnola's office. I looked at it with a typical ladder truck for an urban fire department in the state of New Jersey. It's from the Linden department. I don't have the information on the truck in Montclair, but it showed that if the truck is traveling westbound on Walnut Street, it can turn into the entrance driveway of the site without encroaching on any of the curbs, without encroaching onto the street parking area. It cannot make the swing at the rear of the building, but really the intent of the fire access is to get the truck to the building or get the truck to the site. So we've accomplished that. In the hopefully infrequent circumstances where fire trucks would need to get onto the subject property, they would need to back out the driveway back onto Walnut Street. If the truck is coming in the eastbound direction down the hill on Walnut Street, they would have to swing out into the oncoming lane in order to make the turn into the site. But again, this is a condition that hopefully occurs very infrequently.
Okay. So in your opinion, there's no issue with respect to a fire truck being able to access the rear building to deal with a fire or other emergency?
Right. They can, once they get into that entrance driveway, it's a straight shot to the rear of the property. So there would be no issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fleischer, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment. A lot of them.
Okay, Mr. Simon, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McCulloch, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Ms. Harris, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Caulfield, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Gilmer, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, I just have one. We had a discussion earlier about garbage truck access to where the garbage and recycling containers are stored. Have you had a chance to look at that?
Thank you, Janice. I forgot to unmute myself. I did take a look at it. I had done a brief review while you were asking the question of the architect before. I think given where the trash enclosure is on the plan, to me, in all likelihood, the best way to handle it would be either to bring, have a private hauler come onto the site with a pickup truck and manually unload the trash from the receptacles in that enclosure, or to have smaller containers that could be rolled out to the street frontage by whoever the property management person is.
Okay. Janice, you want to unmute the public? Are there any members of the public who have questions for this witness?
Yes, I have a question regarding, and I'm not sure if it's for the witness, but
Can you just state your name and address again, please?
I'm sorry, my name is Madeline Loperetta, 85 North Fullerton Avenue. Apologies. I do have a question, and I'm not sure if it's for the witness or for the board, but the variance that affects the detached garage, that's also going to be decided here as well? Is that part of, that's the variance number 347-52 and 347-46A?
Yes, that variance is under consideration now. Obviously, the garage is existing. The location of the garage is what it is. The property line is where it is. Because of the fact that the applicant was proposing to modify that structure by reducing the height, the determination was made that a variance was required, but there was never an idea of moving it any closer to the property line. I think if you look at the survey, it shows that there's a 0.5 foot setback to the side and 2.5 feet to the rear. But then the eaves of that existing garage apparently extend to or just across the property line. So part of the reason for the applicant's proposal to modify that was to eliminate that encroachment. There's been substantial discussion with the board tonight, if you've been here for the whole process, about different ways that could be addressed by moving the garage, by building a new garage, so on and so forth. So in no case is the setback going to be any less than it is. Let's just say that.
Okay, would they consider selling it to me? I'd be happy to buy it.
Oh,
Eliminate it from the equation.
that would be something for the client to discuss.
That is all. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public who have questions? Okay, Mr. Tribulak, do you have any further witnesses?
No, Mr. Chairman, that completes the applicant's case.
Okay, now, your architect had indicated he wanted to consult with your client on a couple of issues. I don't know how you want to handle that at this point.
Well, I think if maybe we could take a 5-minute break, we can try to reach the client and get some quick answers.
Okay, why don't we do that? And
Okay.
we'll come back at 9:55. This is
Okay.
And then, Bill, it's Michael Sullivan. You'll then open it up for the public for any comment.
Correct. Correct. So if there are any members of the public who want to say anything about the application, not asking questions, but comment on it, they're in support or in opposition, when we come back at 9:55 after we hear the results of the discussions with the client on those issues, will be your opportunity to say whatever you want to say about the application. Okay, with that, we'll take a break until 9:55.
Thank you.
be missing some board members. Proceed.
Sure. I did have the opportunity to speak to my clients to discuss a few of the issues or questions that came up. With respect to the vinyl fencing, they proposed that because they say there's, that there's several properties across the street nearby that have vinyl fencing. They thought it was kind of consistent with what's there. I mean, if the board feels that the vinyl fencing, should be replaced, they would replace it with another material, presumably wood, I guess, whatever the board determines. They advised me, they have had, property has been the subject of a snow plowing contract, which they would continue in the future. With respect to trash, the existing house has trash stored behind the house like most residential properties. So the trash enclosure would just service the 5 new units. And of course, as my client said, and it's obvious, they have as much of an interest as anyone to make sure that trash is removed and conditions don't result in rodents or other, infestation of that sort. And that their intention is to have a private company take care of removing the trash. And if a vehicle can't get all the way to the enclosure, that they would, there would just be, 5, 6, 7 cans maybe that would be, manually loaded into the truck and removed. So that's their intention with respect to trash and recycling. And I don't believe there was any other issues I needed to discuss with them.
Okay. Okay. We're going to open the hearing up to the public now. So if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on the application, give testimony, say whatever you want, either in support or in opposition or propose conditions, now is your chance to do that.
Saying anything. Hello? This is Madeline Loperana, 85 North Fullerton Avenue.
And let me just stop you there for a second. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
Go ahead.
So as final comment, appreciate what is going to be happening in the backyard or in the backside of the property. I did have concerns when I originally came on, and I was opposing the fact that we were getting a 5-unit building in the backside of my property. Being that with that comes increased noise from the additional cars, that changes the character of my backyard. There's a bit of construction that has been going on in Montclair overall, and the density of Montclair has dramatically increased in the last 10 years. So I definitely fear that it's going to lead to safety issues, traffic issues, and noise. So my biggest opposition is that it's going to change the character of the backyard, because now there's going to be another building with 5 units that's going to sit directly behind my property. In respect to the fixing of the two-car garage,
Very hard to hear. I'm sorry. It's very hard to hear. There's a lot of background noise. I don't know who it's coming from. It's impossible to hear the comments.
okay. Should I start over or?
I think I've muted
It's best to start over. Whatever it was is gone now at the moment.
Okay. So just to repeat what I was or started to say, when I came on the call, my intention was to I am not in favor of the building being constructed in the back side of my property. I do appreciate what the intent is. However, I think it's going to change, again, the way I look in my backyard, or what I'm looking at in my backyard. There's my concerns also, regarding a 5-unit property, is that there's going to be increased noise from the additional cars, car garages opening, more people, the construction that goes into building that or recreating that backspace, and it changes the character of the backyard. Again, in the last 10 years, I've noticed that there's been a lot of construction in Montclair. It's changing the density of what I've known Montclair to be for the last 20 years. So for me, I'm fearing that it's going to lead to more safety issues, more traffic and noise. My biggest concern again is that it's going to change the character and possibly, decrease the value of the properties that are on the in the area, just because of the way it's being constructed behind a building behind a building. So that is my concern, and in respect to the two-car garage that's on my property. I certainly appreciate the fact that it's going to be refaced, and that it's not going to be the eyesore that it's been. It's really red and right on the property. I can do anything with it, but at the end of the day, I appreciate the fact that that's going to be fixed. And that is all. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time and for listening. I appreciate it.
I just have one question for you. Is your lot the lot that basically is on two sides of where that garage is?
Correct.
Okay. So, and that's where it goes down past that garage. I mean, that's an existing lawn area on your property. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It's actually asphalt.
Okay.
So on the back side of the garage, it's all lawn, and then on the side, or the other side, it's asphalt.
So it's lawn behind their garage, and then on the side it's paved, correct?
Correct.
And then the fence you said, is that a white fence?
Yes, it's a wooden fence, and we painted it white.
Okay, so that shows up in the pictures that the planning staff prepared for us. That goes right alongside the garage, and I assume goes behind the garage as well.
Correct. No, it's not on behind the garage. No,
it's just on the side there.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else with questions for this witness? Okay. Thank you very much for coming. You've been very helpful.
Thank you for your time.
Are there any other members of the public who have anything to say about the application? Any comments at all? Okay, one last. Okay. Mr. Tremblant. Alan, you're on mute.
Up. Mr. Chair. Oh, what's going on?
You're okay. Alan,
I am, yeah.
you're unmuted now.
I keep. Although I think I'm. Let's do that.
Unmute yourself. Go ahead.
You're okay now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think we were, had competing mute buttons going on there or something. All right. Briefly, with respect to the site plan, I think we've addressed, all of the comments and concerns from the board's professionals and the board. And I think also, based on Mr. Stimble's testimony, I think we've met the criteria for granting the 3 C variances that are being requested. With respect to Ms. Laparena's concerns, it seems to me, if anything, we're improving the conditions behind her property. Right now, she's got this garage that's going, that's fairly tall. That's going to be reduced in height. It's going to be improved significantly, repaired, and improved, and bringing the height down to a height that's compliant, and not exacerbating or changing any of the existing nonconformity in terms of the garage location. In addition, she's currently got to the rear of her property, not only the garage, but this non-conforming commercial and replaced with a new residential building, more in keeping with the residential character of the neighborhood, which will be located substantially further from her property than the existing commercial use. And with respect to traffic, we're talking 5 apartments. And the traffic generated by those apartments, I mean, obviously we haven't done an analysis of this, but you had a commercial auto repair facility there for many years, operating presumably normal business hours. I think the amount of traffic being generated by that use would be significantly greater than what's going to be generated by 5 apartments. So I don't think her objections are, I mean, I understand her concerns, but I don't think they're valid. And I think what we're doing constitutes an improvement for the entire neighborhood, but also for her as an immediate neighbor to the west. So for all those reasons and the reasons I've already expressed in the witness's testimony, I would ask that the board approve the application for site plan approval and the variances, and subject to the various conditions that have been discussed, and I'm sure will hopefully be enumerated as the board considers the application. So thank you very much.
Okay. We'll start discussion with Mr. Simon.
I'm generally in favor of the application, other than the concerns about some of the logistics with the garbage and the mail, which I think need to be addressed by the owner and the tenants once that's done. But I'm generally in favor.
Okay, Mr. McCulloch.
Similarly, I'm also in favor of the proposal.
Ms. Harris.
I'm in favor of this proposal, subject to the conditions that were agreed to by the architect that were suggested by the Historic Preservation Board.
Okay, Mr. Caulfield.
I am too in favor. I would like to see the garage moved a little bit off that line, just, just to avoid that aspect of it, but otherwise I'm in favor.
Ms. Gilmore?
I'm also in favor.
Mr. Fleischer?
Well, I'm in favor of this project. I think it's actually a great project. The garage worries me. The freestanding garage worries me a lot. If the original notion was historic preservation and all to save ancillary buildings, the essence of what's been done here doesn't really save the ancillary buildings. The ancillary buildings had a unique character. They were actually almost a set of buildings historically. I think this project gets better with the elimination of that existing garage, which no longer resembles the original historic set of buildings there. It no longer works. It's in a bad spot. It's on a property line. I would like to see this project approved without approving that garage structure, which means essentially denying the yard variances for it. I think the garage there is simply a mistake. The adjacent neighbor would be better off without the structure there. The actual two spaces are not even required per the parking count. They're above the required parking count. They could add another space pretty much next to where those other spaces are and end up with more landscape area. And I think everybody else is better off than the effort being made to save a piece of structure that no longer in any way, shape, or form resembles the historic structure. So I think it's a great project. I think the overall project should be approved. I'm very much against approving it with that modified existing garage in its current position. And so I would probably vote no on those C variances because since I don't know any other way of figuring out how to get rid of that structure. But I think that structure is ultimately not good for the development and not good for the position that it's in. So I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on it, but I'd like to see that garage structure simply be removed from the site. It no longer serves its historic purpose. It doesn't serve the notion of saving historic ancillary buildings. It's really not good for the development, in my opinion.
Mr. Moore?
I'm in favor of the application. And recommend using the restrictions provided by the Historic Preservation Commission. And I also question the garage, so I'd like to see what my colleagues wind up voting on, because it seems to be somewhat of an issue. But overall, I think that the project definitely brings more value to the area, and it's come along positively.
Okay. I'm also generally in favor of the application. I mean, we supported the use variance, which gave us the 5 units, and I think having a residential use on the rear of the property is much better than the current commercial use at the rear of the property. I think, and let me go through the conditions because that'll cover most of what I generally want to say, that we would carry over conditions 1 and 2 from the prior approval. I guess, I mean, quick conditions 4 and 5 of that approval are on all approvals, but just to be clear, that my assumption is they will be part of this approval. That the fence will conform to the ordinance as shown on the plans. The that that the applicant, prior to a certificate of occupancy being issued, submit plans to the planning office indicating how garbage and recycling it will be handled and how snow removal will be handled on the property. That the applicant discussed with the post office the preferred location, the post office's preferred location for the community mailboxes for the 5 units. And for that matter, if the post office wants to do it for all 7 units, but where, you know, I don't think it should impact our concerns. That as to the Historic Preservation Commission, I'm going to do this backwards because I think that will be quicker, because most conditions the applicant indicated they would comply with. So I'm going to do the ones they don't have to comply with, which would be conditions 1, 2, and 3. Conditions 4 and 5, with the understanding that the applicant has flexibility in order to meet what is the intent of those conditions, that they not have to comply with condition 14, which I'll come back to in terms of the variances, which is retaining the existing historic outbuilding, which clearly what they're proposing doesn't do. And that they not have to comply with condition 19, which is the retaining wall, using it of historic conditions. I will trust the architect's testimony that will find something that will not look garishly modern and out of place. And as he said, the retaining walls are short and not very extensive on the property. As to the variances, I agree with Mr. Fleischer. I just can't get to where I can justify granting the variances for the garage. If they were keeping the structure and doing minor changes to it, then based on the recommendation coming out of the Historic Preservation Commission, I would be more open to it. But they're basically cutting off the top of the building, including, you know, that rear portion, and redoing the siding, and just it's gonna look totally different from what's there currently and have no historic relationship. And to allow that to stay a portion of it on the property line and all of it encroaching, and given the parking spaces aren't necessary, I just can't see a justification for granting a variance for that building as proposed. I don't have a problem granting the other variances. To some extent, they were inherent in the approval we gave for the use variance. So I would be in support of those with the conditions enumerated and would be in favor of granting the site plan approval. And I don't think the variances, other than the yard variances for the garage, will have a substantial detriment to the public good or a substantial impairment to the zone plan. On the other hand, I think granting the requested variances for the garage would have a substantial detriment to the public good and to the zone plan. I mean, we have consistently, when granting variances for garages that have encroached, we have required greater setbacks than what would exist here. And I also think there's a reality when they start doing the work, they're going to end up effectively tearing down the garage based on its current condition. But regardless, I cannot be in support of the requested variances on that. Is there any further discussion?
Bill, it's Mike Sullivan. I have a question. With regard to the HPC report, item 17 dealt with the vinyl fencing, we're going to make them comply with that?
Yes, that's my proposal.
And also with respect to the memo from Graham Petto, Janice, are we satisfied that the garbage and recycling storage areas comply with 281-8.1H?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and Bill, we're not going to say anything further regarding the indigenous species or the lighting spread with regard to the PSE&G light?
Yeah, I mean, the PSE&G light has been there. I would have been happier with it, but I don't know what we're going to do with getting that if he's thought about requiring him to provide it, but since we're otherwise accepting the lighting plan, that's like a not helpful piece of information. The landscaping, I think they've made some effort to use indigenous species, and where they're not, it's largely to provide screening, particularly along the easterly property line, which I think is desirable.
Okay, and then finally, we're satisfied that the suburban consulting report of September 14 has been satisfied.
Correct. That was the testimony that the revised plans met those and along with the testimony, Mr. Stimmel on the fire truck will be able to get in and just have fun backing out. But the key thing is to get it into the property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if we don't grant the variance for the garage, do we have to specify or request that it be torn down? Because theoretically, they could just do nothing and leave it as is. It wouldn't look good, but by the letter of the approvals, they could just leave it as it is, and it would be totally within their rights, unless we specify that it needs to be torn down, right?
Correct. And I do not have strong views on this. You have the dilemma of the Historic Preservation Commission would be happier if we left it as is versus the fact there it is sitting there not looking particularly attractive and next to the neighbor's property. But I'll leave it to other members of the board as to their thoughts on that.
I would make the recommendation that it be removed, actually, Mr. Simon. I agree, because otherwise we're just asking for a nightmare back there.
Yeah, this is John McCullough. I would also agree. I felt from the very beginning that garage should be demolished, and I would rather have the historic commission challenge us on that if they would want to. But I would support the demolition of that structure.
Okay, so that would be added as a condition that the existing garage be removed.
Yeah.
And replaced by landscaping.
Yes.
Okay, someone want to make a motion?
I move approval of the application with the conditions that, as already discussed, along with an additional condition for the removal of that existing garage, and that the area there be landscaped in lieu of what's currently there.
And Mr. Fleischer, obviously denial of the request for the variance relating to the garage.
Yes, but we want a condition that it actually be taken down. I think that's what we're saying. It's beyond not granting the variance, because I agree we shouldn't grant that variance, but we should also require it that it be removed.
All right.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Okay. Janice, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Fleischer?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Caulfield?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmer?
Yes.
And Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And I assume, Janice, that's it for us?
That is it.
Okay, so our next meeting is November 4th, when hopefully we'll all be in a much better mood than currently. Tired, but in a better mood.
Okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Good night. See you day after election day.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.
Thank you all.